Hello, welcome to Stepping Up to Your Potential with Sandra Robinson. When it came to stepping up into my own potential, I've encountered roadblocks that I know are fairly widespread, common enough, in fact, to have actual names for them. In this instance, I'm referring specifically to imposter syndrome. If you aren't familiar with the term, it describes those who fear being exposed as an imposter or fraud. It's usually covered in terms of job success, but it's hardly relegated to that arena. Story time. I've always loved teaching, and regardless of the class I was taking, I generally ended up as the impromptu teacher's aide or student helper. While I was comfortable reiterating or rephrasing something a teacher said in order to help a fellow classmate, I never undertook teaching solo. Why? Primarily, I didn't feel qualified to, and these reasons ranged from not being educated enough to thinking I wasn't smart enough and everything in between. In short, I refused to step up because I didn't believe in myself enough and didn't have the confidence. Fear of being an imposter stopped me from even trying. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to work at a local sewing store as a teacher. Now, I've been sewing for a very long time and even taken a number of college-level fashion design and tailoring classes. Despite this, I was terrified. I was positive I wasn't qualified and that my students would laugh me out of the room within 2 minutes. I almost passed on this opportunity because of these fears. A friend kicked me in the butt, and I ended up accepting. Time for the first class rolls around. I was prepared. I even had a PowerPoint presentation with a framework of notes to help guide and prompt me. Then I start seeing my students. These women ranged in age from 11 to 80. The younger students, no problem. But the older ones? Some of these women had been sewing for longer than I'd been alive. That opened the door for imposter syndrome to start screaming insecurities at me. Quote, "Who do I think I am to teach these people anything?" End quote. Icing on the cake? One crusty old lady sat down, gave me a gimlet once-over and said, "I doubt you'll be able to teach me anything I don't already know." Talk about food for the imposter syndrome gristmill of negative self-talk. While I may have wanted to run screaming out of that room, I didn't. I took a deep breath, reminded myself that I had an outline and also that I had been working with people individually for many years. I could do this. I could teach a real class. And with that in mind, I began. The icing on the cake? About 5 minutes in, that same crusty old lady said, "Wow, it's only been a few minutes and I've already learned something new." The point. Most everybody has had to deal with this in some form or other at some point. Ultimately, it's an insecurity rather than a reality. For example, I know corporate executives whose entire life has revolved around what they are doing, who still feel like imposters, just waiting for somebody to discover it and fire them. The difference between a person who puts themselves out there and one who doesn't is that the imposter insecurity doesn't stop them, not that they don't have it in some form or degree. When it comes to stepping up into your potential, that means stepping out of the comfort zone. Anytime we step out of comfort zones, insecurities have a field day. I know that for me, my brand of imposter syndrome was very definitely a factor in why I didn't step up. That said, I'm now working on managing it. As I mentioned in the introduction post, the best method of combating any kind of insecurity is to do, and then build on what has been done. Once you've got evidence behind you that says, yeah, I can indeed do this, then it becomes easier and easier. Here are some of the things I've learned which has helped me move out of the shadows and into the light. Hopefully you can use them as a guide so that you too can start stepping up to your own potential. 1. Recognize your triggers. Not everything will trigger this insecurity, and it's different for everybody. For me, it really only crops up when I'm in a teaching role. It doesn't crop up at all when I'm in a leadership role, though. In addition to knowing the situation which triggers it, pay attention to the kinds of things this insecurity is whispering. In my case, it always boiled down to I'm not educated enough. Knowing the exact emotional weapon this insecurity would use helped me develop tools to overcome it. In my case, I over-prepare and constantly learn new things. Know for yourself exactly the situations which spawn this insecurity and also know the words it uses. Now when I hear myself saying, "I'm not an expert, I can't," stop right there. I see what's going on. 2. Practice, practice, practice. Again, it's about building up that personal bank of actions taken that you can point to when insecurities are working to tear things apart. Quote, I know I can do this because I did it here and there. Maybe not exactly the same way, but close enough. End quote. Whatever your end goal is, if it's too big right now, it's okay to take baby steps, but take them. Standing still is never an option. Practicing means doing, not thinking or imagining or reciting affirmations. Doing. Getting out there, however far away from your comfort zone that you can manage right this moment. Do it. 3. Part of this step for practicing is actually to have faith in yourself. This is where a positive reinforcement can go a long way. Because imposter syndrome is a type of insecurity, there's no magic bullet to get rid of insecurities. I wish there were. The closest I've come is to put myself in situations where I am tested, and when I pass a test in any way at all, that becomes a list point that I use to counter the insecurity. In this way, I start building faith in myself and my ability to do whatever the task at hand is. 4. Be prepared. For every single class I teach, I have an outline of what to cover, and I know stone cold what the objective of the class is. If I know these, I can speak impromptu without any qualms. I hear the same advice for executive leadership, public speakers, and managers. Know the material first and foremost. From there, it's experience with the process and faith in my own ability to handle things which get me through. 5. Whatever it is you want to do, recognize that you don't have to know everything about it or be perfect to do it anyway. The most empowering thing I learned to say in response to a question was, I don't know, but I'll do some research and get back to you. The more someone tries to present as an infallible expert or perfect, the more I know they are secretly suffering from imposter syndrome and they haven't yet mastered it and thus are overcompensating. Just stick with what you do know and move into the new territory over time. Above all, be honest with yourself as well as those you're working with. You'd be amazed just how much people are willing to work with you if they know you recognize your limits and want to overcome them. 6. Remember your purpose. I get in front of people and teach because my end goal is not to teach per se, but to inspire others to express their potential. That's my purpose, to inspire and enable others to succeed. My purpose is bigger than my fear and insecurity. And when I remember the purpose of all this, it makes it that much easier to tell my insecurity to sit down and be quiet because I've got work to do. These are the 6 things I've learned which help me manage my own imposter syndrome. According to Dr. Valerie Young, my brand of this is largely the expert. So if points 4 and 5 don't really help you with your brand of imposter syndrome, check out Dr. Young's work. As with most insecurities, I don't think I'll ever be cured, but I can certainly ensure it's out of the way enough that I can do what I need to. Now that I've had some practice managing it, it gets a little easier each time I need to move past it. TLDR. Imposter syndrome is an insecurity which lives in fear of being discovered as a fraud. For many, it keeps us from stepping beyond the comfort zone. It can be managed with awareness and this limitation therefore overcome. If you found value in today's episode, I hope that you'll join me for future ones. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss anything.